When it comes to video game history, you probably heard the story of Atari's disastrous ET game, which involves one man spending only 5 weeks to make an ET game right before the holidays. When the game got released, it got overwhelmingly negative reviews. Unsold copies of the game were being buried out in the New Mexico desert and blamed as one of the contributing factors to the North America video game crash in 1983. Afterwards, Atari struggled to recover. The market has shrunk significantly and consumer confidence in video games was an all-time low. Atari was trying to revive its business with new consoles like the Atari 7800 and the Atari XE game system, but were largely unsuccessful, and the company eventually defunct in 1992. But here's something crazy. Almost 20 years after the original ET Atari game got released, another company gambled on the popular Alien, and again, it ended in a total complete disaster. In the year 2000, New Kid Co., a New York publisher of low-budget children's games, took a giant risk of obtaining the license for E.T. for an amount now estimated to be in the millions. Its plan was to produce a bunch of video games based on the iconic Alien, hoping to capitalize on the film's 20th anniversary, happening in 2002. But early on, things didn't go exactly as planned. The publisher soon overstretched itself with the number of licensed games it was creating and quickly ran into financial difficulties. This had a devastating impact on the company and its development partners. So the question is, what went wrong, and why did these games never get released? Well, this video will go over the publisher New Kid Co. and how they felt like it was a great idea to put all their chips into the E.T. franchise. The journey begins in 1997 when Hank Kaplan, the founder and former chairman of High Tech Expressions and ex-president of Philips Media, started New Kid Co. alongside former High Tech Expressions and acclaimed producer Dan Feinstein and Jonathan Harber, the president of the education software company Kinderactive. The idea behind New Kid Co. was try to fill in the gap in the market, leveraging existing licensing relationships with popular brands like Tom and Jerry and Sesame Street to create affordable video games for children on widely accessible platforms. For a while, everything was going well. The publisher was securing funding from investors, winning awards, and signing lucrative partnerships with Ubisoft for international distribution. Then, in the early 2000s, Kaplan came up with a very bad decision. With Steven Spielberg's E.T. turning 20 in the summer of 2002, Kaplan wanted to acquire the license to the iconic film and its sequel novel, The Book of the Green Planet, to produce a string of games for handhelds and home consoles. Right away, not everyone at New Kid Co. was enthusiastic about this idea. Dan Feinstein told Hank he was crazy for putting all his eggs in one basket and told him he should have gone after Harry Potter. Hank at the time didn't know what a Harry Potter was. Don't get me wrong, E.T. is a fantastic film, but the timing was kind of off. The film was almost 20 years old, it was starting to become a forgotten movie to children. Despite the staff not agreeing with Hank's decision, New Kid Co. pushed ahead with its E.T. plans on November 27, 2000, announcing the licensing deal on its website. The E.T. film was scheduled for a 20th anniversary re-release in movie theaters in the spring of 2002 that will include never-seen-before footage as well as state-of-the-art computer-generated enhancements of the original Oscar-winning visual effects. The company is planning a full line of E.T. games for these platforms as part of its 2001-2002 lineup. New Kid Co. planned to start off small, releasing a bunch of minor handheld titles first, before publishing increasingly more complex and expensive games for these platforms. These weren't all based on the same design. Instead, the plan was to span into multiple genres and stories, inspired by the film and its sequel book from the author William Kotzwinkle. In a press release dated May 14, 2001, Kaplan expressed his excitement about the deal. "We are very pleased and excited about the opportunity to work with Universal Studios and Amblin Entertainment to reintroduce the perennial favorite through the new interactive technologies. Few movies have inspired laughter and tears to billions around the world as much as E.T. New Kid Co. wanted to achieve its gaming goals by partnering up with a number of US and UK studios, bringing on board a British video game producer named John Oldham to help ensure that the overseas products ran as smoothly as possible. John Oldham at the time was a respected figure in the games industry, having previously signed publishing deals for the console versions of Theme Park and Worms while at Ocean Software. He was also the co-founder of the mobile studio Fluid, a commercial director at Z2, and a project manager at Warthog Games, 3 companies that all ended up working on the video games based on E.T. Surprisingly, with all the help from other studios, New Kid Co still didn't have enough money to fund all the E.T. projects. The first game that New Kid Co released was E.T. Digital Companion for the Game Boy Color in October 2001. This was essentially a personal planner slash diary where you answer a set of increasingly personal questions from E.T. You can look after a virtual pet, play some mini games like jigsaw puzzles and concentration. This game takes about an hour to complete it. 1 month after Digital Companion, New Kid Co followed up with his E.T. Escape from Planet Earth, another simple game for the Nintendo handheld. The game has you guide E.T. through various mazes, solving puzzles to find the telephone parts necessary to phone home. Designer Ryan A. Cook talks about how the development team was very small when making this game. The employees were on a strict time frame and budget that needed to get done before the release of the game. The gameplay offers 140 puzzles and 60 environments, 3 modes of gameplay, play as E.T. and Elliot or both, clubhouse trading areas for trading items found for parts to the communicator, 3 levels of difficulty. The game is pretty simple and straightforward with only about 2 hours of gameplay. In December 2001, New Kid Co released E.T. the Extraterrestrial for the Game Boy Advance. This game is very bad. It loosely follows the story of the film and saw players control both Elliot and E.T. as they collect items to help E.T. get home and escape from the government agents. Sounds familiar? It's basically the same game as the Atari 2600 version, but with better graphics. The music and sounds are like nails on a chalkboard. Just listen to it. It's kinda crazy that someone actually paid full price for this game, and believe it or not, the gameplay is only about 15 minutes long. From start to finish, you're only playing for a short period of time. The GameStop employee probably didn't want to see that game in their store. Despite this terrible game that was made available to the public, New Kid Co decided to release 4 more E.T. games during the following year. The games include E.T. Away from Home, Interplanetary Mission, Phone Home Adventure, and E.T. and the Cosmic Garden. Barely any of these E.T. games sold particularly well. Even worse, New Kid Co started to struggle to pay back the money that the companies and their employees worked their asses off for the past year. Problems continued to escalate. Hank was never good on the financial side of business and tended to overpromise on everything. New Kid Co was having trouble meeting its development payments on time, and the producers spent more time fighting for developer payments to go out. Essentially, New Kid Co was a small studio trying to produce big games while screwing over the developers. New Kid Co's financial difficulties hit the development partners hard. Fluid Studios, who were set to work on another E.T. game for the Game Boy Advance called Venrom's Assault, lost a bunch of potential income, as did Z2, who were working on Search for Dragora for GameCube, and Warthog Games, who were working on Return to the Green Planet for the PS2. All 3 were developing E.T. projects to be released in October 2002 for the next generation of platforms, but this never happened, and the games were eventually dropped, with New Kid Co owing the 3 companies over $1 million in unpaid fees. The New Kid Co publisher didn't have a clue on what they were doing. It only got worse. New Kid Co was so confident that they would make a fortune producing E.T. games, but it completely backfired. Fast forward to 2005, and New Kid Co failed to secure the funding it needed to keep going and closed down for good. Ever since New Kid Co went out of business in 2005, players have been eager to find out more information on the 3 canceled E.T. games. Small bits of information gradually surface online, including images of their box art, screenshots from Search for Dragora, and Dean Evans' soundtrack for Return to the Green Planet. But exactly how far did production go for the 3 E.T. games? Here's what we know so far. The Solarian project was never entered into pre-production, with it likely being an agreement with Oldham and New Kid Co that never planned out the project. There wasn't anything physically produced. The next one is Warthog's Return to Green Planet for the PS2. The game got a little further along in production, according to the developers, as Warthog's head of technology Paul Hughes and the narrator Athena Dean told us it was in development for 4 to 6 months and was going to focus on what was happening to E.T. and Elliot after the alien returned to his home planet. As they seem to recall, the goal of the game was to collect items to help build a spaceship out of a turnip, and it was scheduled to be a 3D point-and-click adventure. There was definitely a lot of potential with this game. It's unfortunate that this game never saw the light of day. Out of these three games, Zed's 2, Search for Jaguar for the Nintendo GameCube definitely got the furthest in production. Like Zed 2's earlier ET game, Cosmic Garden, it again focused around gardening, but with some additional platforming also thrown in for good measure. David Bone Gill, a programmer, describes that the original concept for it was essentially kind of like Pokemon or Viva Pinata. There was 64 different plant types, and if you mix the red one and the blue one, it will grow a purple one. You then mix the purple one, and then it'll grow out from a tree. But there wasn't enough content for the game. David Gill suspects even Nintendo wouldn't pass as a full product, so David and his team ended up adding traveling between planets and puzzle solving too. According to Gill, Z2 worked on it for roughly a year and put together a demo. Believe it or not, this demo is for the PS2 version of the game, which isn't the platform that Z2 was actually contracted for. As of right now, there's no video or information on what exactly is on the disc. In the end, it's kind of crazy how much poor financial decision making, lack of management, and drama was involved in making these ET games. All this could have been avoided if New Kid Co. took their time making these ET games instead of pushing them out all at once. Not only did the ET games ruin New Kid Co., but managed to take down Z2 as well, striking down a beloved UK developer in its prime. This begs the question, will ET ever make a comeback? Probably not, given the history that this green alien has been through. That's going to wrap up this video. See you next time, and thanks for watching.